La for, hit for none. All the time. La for, hit for none. For Islam stand for peace. La for, hit for none. For Islam stand for peace.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. May the peace and blessings of God be upon us all. You are once again welcome to MTA International Africa. This is coming to you live from Wahab Adam Studios here in Accra, Ghana. This is Real Talk Africa, and as we do always, we meet and we discuss issues pertinent to the youth, and also would be of help to each one of us. So today, once again, we have met here to discuss yet another very important topic, that is youth and politics. Are the youth ready to lead? To help me do the discussions, some very honorable gentlemen sitting on my left-hand side. But then, mind you, we also have studio audience as we do always, and they are beaming and gleaming and sitting here looking on. I would go ahead and introduce the guests we have today. Starting from my immediate left is Maulvi Hafiz Hafif Ibrahim. Maulvi Saab, you're welcome.
Jazakallah, thank you very much.
Maulvi Saab is a missionary of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Mission, and he works in the headquarters here in Accra, Ghana. Next to him is one of the leaders of the youth wing of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Association here in Ghana, Majlis Khuddam al-Ahmadiyya. He happens to be the Naib Sadr, which means he is an assistant to the, or a vice to the main head of the youth wing of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Mission here in Ghana. And he is in the person of Mr. Mustafa Amisa Arthur. Mr. Mustafa, welcome. Thank you very much. And wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. And next to him is our learned colleague, our brother in court, the noble profession, a person who practices law as his means of life. His name is Esquire Abdul Hadi Kilson Amu. Lawyer Sab, you're welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so as I said, now we see the world and, for example, our part of the world, how politics has always been. We've had a lot of older people leading, and for example, I know our lawyer would send us into the legal framework on choosing the leaders and all that. We know that in Ghana here, for example, if you're not 40, you cannot become the president of a country. But that also begs the question, is it as if they are putting away the capabilities of the young and concentrating on the old, or it is actually something that would genuinely help us all? We've also heard some statements being made by some politicians here alluding to the fact that young people are not capable of holding some political positions or, say, being leaders by themselves. So to help us with these would be the discussions, and I would entreat you all, please, go all out. Let us know what's in your head. Maulvi Saab, I would start with you. Please let us know, do you think that our upbringing, how we were brought up as Africans generally, it has an effect on how we lead and our thoughts on leadership when we grow?
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. I think in Africa there are some values, very beautiful values that we are brought up with. For example, the values that the elderly or elders are always right. Okay, so you shouldn't challenge them. And there are some advantages to this kind of upbringing. Not to challenge the elders, to respect them, to obey them, and so forth. Islam teaches us that as well. Respect to parents and generally to elders. The hadith of the Prophet ﷺ emphasizes on that, you know. However, that is not to say that you cannot disagree with the elderly. As far as Islam is concerned, there are a number of times the companions of the Prophet ﷺ approach him. A father and son are having, you know, a quarrel, and the Prophet ﷺ leads in favor of the younger of the son. For example, the issue of Yazid and Ma'an. a father and son, the father approaches a poor person and gives some sadaqah, some charity to the poor person. And the son rushes to the poor person and snatches the money, Then the father says, no, I didn't intend to give it to you. I intended it for the beggar. So they approached the Prophet ﷺ to judge. The Prophet ﷺ asked them to explain, and the son explained that I am poorer than the beggar he gave the money to. So that is the reason why I went for the money. The Prophet ﷺ said, okay, well, you, the father, your intention was good. You've got your reward from Allah. But the son has taken what is his due. I mean, he's more deserving than you start charity from whom, The focus of this story is just that there are times that the Prophet ﷺ ruled in favor of children. So it is okay sometimes for the elders to be wrong and the children to be right. Okay, but that doesn't take away the fact that elderliness, akrim sha'r, the Prophet ﷺ says that you should obey the gray hair. That is because there is wisdom in a grown person, an elderly person. There is knowledge in an elderly person, even if they lived their youth roughly, if they weren't very good when they were young. When they grow old, they learn from their mistakes. So when they advise you, they advise you from experience. I did this and I did that, it was wrong. Okay. So you shouldn't toe on the same path. So respect for the elderly, obeying them, listening to them is very important. But when they ask us to do something which is wrong, we should be bold enough. We should have that sense to be able to determine that on this, as far as this is concerned, it is wrong. And that is where our upbringing sometimes has a problem. We don't give a chance for the child to also voice out, their concerns. We make it final that the elder must always be right no matter what. That is where the difference comes.
I see. Naib Sadrasab, please, could you share with us maybe a position you have held or any role, leadership role, that made you feel capable that, oh yes, now, if even the older ones are not there, we can manage things?
Thank you so much. In fact, I feel so uncomfortable when I'm answering this kind of question because it somehow looks like you are blowing your trumpet. Yes. And then also, if your superiors are listening, then if they are planning something for you, then you have already given yourself up. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, but then, as you just mentioned in the intro, being the Vice President of the Ahmadi Youth Association, the various roles that I've been playing, that is superintending over about 3 regions, their activities, and ensuring that whatever instructions that comes from the top are executed to the latter and reported on. People who engage in these activities usually climb up the ladder. I will just give an example of a former national president who is now the general secretary of the Jamaat. In the same vein, there's a former president, the youth president, who is also deputy Amir. So when you are taking through this mail, obviously you are prepared for a greater task ahead.
All right, I see. Thank you very much. My learned friend.
So you're asking if I've ever been in a position?
Yes, if you've occupied a role or a position that made you feel capable that, oh, at least now we can see even without the elders, or if the elders pass, we can also survive and run things.
Okay, so before I even answer the question, I have always been a proponent of sustainability, that when there's a vision, there should be plans in place to ensure that that vision is realized. Okay. Many a time, life expectancy can be cut short by any means, but it doesn't mean the vision should die. So I have been privileged to work with old people. For example, when I was in law school, I was made a chairperson of the sports committee. I'm convinced that I was the youngest person in the group, the team. However, I was made a chair. And the people I worked with never at any point in time made reference to my age. It was all about the ideas I was bringing on board, and they were ever ready to respond to any call. I would convene a meeting, and I'll have an older person who has to do something for the family, begging me to permit him to absent himself so he can run some family errands, and then call back that I've done this, I'm available, so we can work together. So for me, it's all about the vision and the fact that some things must continue. So if we look at it from that perspective, bringing young people on board would never be an issue. So basically, having experienced these things, I believe that maybe at that point in time, I was very convinced that if I'm ever put in a position where I have to be the one to make the calls, then I'm very well prepared for that.
All right. I would come back to you on this same thing, please. Share with us the role of the youth in political leadership. Political.
Okay. First of all, I believe that there's politics everywhere. Politics is about interest, placing one interest above the other. That is politics. That it is a gamble, for want of a better word. So the moment we have to agree on a common interest, it means that there are varying interests at play, and then we have to decide on what can work for all of us. Arriving at that decision is the politics. And at every point in time, we have to take that decision. So looking at it from having the youth involved, I think that, once again, back to sustainability, if we intend to do something or arrive at a certain decision, we must consider all interests at stake. And many a time, especially when it comes to national development, it is not a short-term goal. We are looking at something that is long-term. Whatever decision that is taken in the long run is going to affect a certain group of people. Those people must be involved in the decision-making. Because if we make a decision and we won't be there to see it happen or will not bear the consequences of that decision, then the people who are likely to suffer or benefit must be consulted in that. So I think that for young people, they are very instrumental. And many a time, the young people are the powerhouse of whatever vision that is there. The execution of that vision is dependent on the young people available. So they play we play a very crucial role, and at every stage in the process, we must be involved.
I see. Naib Sader, please, do you think there are criteria to political leadership? If there are, then you please share some with us.
Yeah, of course. In every institution, there are criteria or rules and regulations that governs it. And in our setting, like we mentioned, some of the criteria are before you become a president of this country, one, you should be a Ghanaian by birth, that is fine. And then also, you should not be less than 40 years. And to become an MP is, I think, 21. Yeah, 21. So with this, the rest are just you being confident and courageous to take up the mantle of leadership. You have to be very good in communication, that is relating to the public, and then also selling your ideas to those who are going to put their thumb on the ballot paper for you, so that you lead them. Because another thing is, when you win and you are leading them, they have sold their freedom to you for some number of years. And for that matter, you need to prove to them that you are capable before they can allow you to lead.
All right. I see. Maulvi Hafif Saab, when it comes to political leadership and, say, experience as part of, as one of the criteria for political leadership, how does it play into it? Experience. Is it important?
Yes, experience is important. And, you know, in politics, and we're discussing about the youth involvement in politics, experience is so important that even where a youth, a young person, is elected into a leadership role in politics, is given a role to play in politics, it is always important for them to tap from the experience, if they don't have it themselves, from the experience and the knowledge of the elderly. In my mind, I am having the understanding that this issue of youth involvement in politics is actually, sometimes the excuse is that the youth are not experienced. They do not know what to do. Okay. But in my mind, leadership role, certain people are born leaders. They've never led before, but they have those qualities in them. And so you can be a leader. And one of the qualities of being a leader is being able to harness experiences of other people as well, okay, put them together and then lead. You don't necessarily have to be the experienced one yourself. So in whichever way it comes, experience is necessary, whether it is within you or it is tapped from another source, from the elderly, from those who are experts in various walks of life. You tap it from them and then you lead with that. So that is what must be considered. Again, when, talking about youth in leadership, youth in politics, one thing that we need to understand is that sometimes this argument is there because there is a thinking that generally the youth are not prepared. The youth, the condition of the youth, the world over, is such that it doesn't look as if they are prepared. Hazrat Muslim Maud radiallahu anhu, he was somebody who loved to work with the youth, who loved to push the youth into leadership. He himself became Khalifa when he was just about 25 years old. Mm-hmm. And he stressed so much on the principle that qawmon ki islah, najwanon ki islah ke bagair nahi ho sakti. That in fact, any nation at all cannot succeed in arriving at the promised land without reforming the youth. Not just the youth, without a reformed youth. When the mentality of the youth is right, and the energy is there, and the Prophet ﷺ has said that there are two qualities of humanity, human beings, that we overlook often. Those are the qualities of as-siha wal-faragha, good health and free time, leisure. And these two qualities are with the youth. And so there's an advantage that a Muslim also saw, that resulted into, for example, the Majlis Khuddam al-Ahmadiyya, that tanzim, so that the youth work with the youth and independently they're able to bring out the good for the continuation of the community. So the youth have these two qualities of free time and also energy. Now, when they are well developed, they have the right mentality, then it is certain that such a nation will reach the promised land. But when the youth doesn't have the right mentality, doesn't have the right tarbiyah, then there's a problem. So it's not just about the youth involvement in politics, it's about how right their mentality is, how well-trained they are. Then otherwise their involvement in politics doesn't make any, they shouldn't be stopped from involving in politics.
As Mobsah mentioned earlier, some people are born leaders. Others learn on the job. Others are groomed. Even those who are born leaders must undergo a certain process to be able to sort of nurture that leadership or even refine, yes, that's the right term, refine the qualities they have. Because it takes some level of experience to be able to deal with certain situations. You may have the qualities, but when you have to put them at play, then you need some extra quality, where that's where experience comes in, to be able to deal with people and situations. So for me, but I think that the young people are capable. I think they are capable. As to the readiness, it depends on the training we have undergone. A reference was made to the second Khalifa of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, who became the worldwide head at age 25. There's also Dr. Martin Luther King, who died at the age of 36. If you have heard of civil rights activism, then you know Martin Luther King. Knowing how the blacks in America have become so vocal, have been able to gain certain rights, then you've heard of Martin Luther King. But he died at 36. So we are very capable. And as to whether we are ready to lead, it depends on the system available. The last time I was having a conversation with someone, and the person projected experience, that she has 27 years of experience. And I said, deduct 27 from your age. And you realize that at the time you started, you were actually a novice. You were actually very young. And the experience you are projecting now, the basis for which you think you are qualified for whatever position you are seeking for, started when you were young. So think of it as someone who is, for example, you were 25 when you started, and now you've added 27, so you think you are well experienced. Think of another 25-year-old who is being deprived of every opportunity to learn because you think he is not ready. When he's your age, what kind of experience is he going to have to be able to occupy the very office you're occupying?
He's also 27
Exactly. So see, the people who are in the helm of affairs now were at some point the young and vibrant people. President J. Kufuor was minister at around age 29. There was a picture I saw on one of these Instagram pages. They actually archived Ghanaian history. He attended a conference in London with J.H. Mensah, the late J.H. Mensah, who at some point was finance minister.
And later even became the senior minister.
Yes, he at the time was the leader of delegation, and Kufuor was just one young guy with him. Years down the line, President Kufuor becomes president of Ghana and appoints him minister.
I see. But Naib Sadarsa, please help us with this.
In our current times, we have so many young men in our political settings who are doing so much well. There was one incident where there was going to be a deal. That is, the country was supposed to sign a deal with certain people. And then a young politician, he delved into it, did his research, and then got to know that no, if we go into that deal, it will affect us. And in the long run, the president said he was misled. He admitted that he was misled. So all this tells that the youth are actually capable. But then it should be well noted that not without the assistance of the elderly. They should give us the push that we need. Because if they don't give us that push that we need, then they will keep on brushing us aside and saying we are not ready, we are not ready. Meanwhile, we will have to be helped gradually, small, and then so that we can take over the mantle.
The mantle. I see. Thank you very, very much. Movisa, do you have anything to say about it?
Yes, I think that if there are statements from the leading class that the youth are not ready, then it is very concerned. It's worrying, because if there is a nation and the leading class, the elderly, think that the youth are not prepared, then it's very unfortunate. And if somebody says that the elderly have failed, it would be so right. Because like you said, you mentioned about progressiveness, you believe in progressiveness. It's very important. Whose responsibility is it to ensure that the youth are on track? That is very important to consider. And so any nation that doesn't have a vibrant youth, a youth ready to take over the baton, to take over from the leadership, then it's an indication of a failure among the current leadership.
Well, I would come to my studio audience immediately after this question. So please, if anyone has any question, I would come to you right after this. Don't you think that we've all been through institutions? Don't you think we, the youth, have given ourselves the chance to be looked down upon because these men or these people would bring monies to us and we would do their bidding? Don't you also think that in our institutions, even though we are not there yet, but there are some in fact, not just some, but a lot of stories and a lot of issues about corruption in our Student Representative Council and all that. And even in some school, they could present a whole budget without figures and all these things. Don't you think our acts, I'll start with Lawyer Hadisa, don't you think we have also, put ourselves in a position where things like this would be said about us?
Okay. Let me begin by referencing the concluding statement of both sides, where he spoke about the responsibility of the older generation to ensure that the youth are on track. It all comes down to orientation. The very things that I always say that there's nothing new under the sun. Whatever we seem to be doing now is something that must have happened before. Now they talk about hooliganism, talk about young people being too violent, speaking against. I mean, how did we even get our independence? We didn't have gentlemen. They were in suit and tie, but they were not gentlemen. They had to be radical. Some of them ended up in prison just so we could get our freedom. And the very people we see now in the helm of affairs at some point were strongly opposed to the ideas of the older generation then. The people we see now, those who are telling us that we are not ready, we are disrespectful, they were at some point radical. They had to use a certain approach. For example, Haruna Iddrisu, who was the then minority leader, was at some point Nuke's president. And you can check in the 90s, the records are there, how they were involved in student activism, how they had to, speak up against the government to get the things done. So, in our schools, and I will get to the opportunity to share a very personal experience. I happen to be a student leader throughout, at least from junior high through to the university. When I was in the university, I happened to be on the General Assembly membership, and there was one time where the SRC week was over, so we were giving a report. Now, in the report, the treasurer gave her a report, and they made procurement with student funds, and that was my worry, student funds. They bought bulbs, wires for the canopies they mounted for the SRC week. Now, in the report, there was no account of those items. And I asked, why are these bulbs and then wires that we bought? He said, we didn't take them. I said, what do you mean you didn't take them? He said, we left them on the canopy, so when we finished, we left. I said, but these things are not perishable. It's not as if they will get destroyed after using it for that 1 week. So I insisted that the treasurer is made to refund if the treasurer cannot provide. And the person eventually cried. People came up to me, why am I doing this? I'm being difficult. I said, no, do you know how students struggle to pay their school fees for you to get that money? So as you are saying, I think as a society, the orientation has not been so good. What we see, the last time someone was saying that children don't learn by what they hear, but they learn from what they see. Mm-hmm. So if we are in a society where people in authority can get away with everything they do, you do not expect the young person who has had some level of power to be so humble and submit himself to the law or to the system to deal with them. So whatever we are seeing in the youth is a reflection of what is happening in the country. So as to whether we have submitted ourselves, I believe that a certain class of people in the country are responsible for ensuring that things are done right. Now, mind you, if you look at our political structure, one of the responsibilities of political parties is to groom leaders. So we have the student branches of these political parties, TAIN, TESCON. Those are the two vibrant ones in Ghana. We have TESCON president, TAIN president. The very positions you see at the national level, communications officer, we have all of them. Those are avenues to train people. So if those people, you invite them to meetings and you are giving them money, they expect to receive some money for work they have not done. Mm-hmm. Why are you surprised that they are using their offices to make money? Because that is what is happening. So I don't think the young people have putting themselves in a certain position. I think the system enables these things. And then before we begin to blame whom for what, we should be able to reorient ourselves and restructure our political system.
We should be able to reorient ourselves and restructure the political system. Now, with my beautiful audience in the in the studio. If anyone has any comment or question, anything, you're welcome.
My name is Abdul Malik,
Okay.
and I want to know, probably maybe from a religious perspective, how do we actually position ourselves at that leadership level, and at the same time to give that kind of respect, so that we are really not tagged or misinterpreted as being rude or being disrespectful.
Okay. All right. Sometimes I think as a leader, it comes with being stern and being strict sometimes. So, and I think I'm very grateful. This question is going to you directly. I know the office you hold, and you deal with a lot of older people too. So how do you handle this? So you're not termed as rude, but...
Yes, so it's a very interesting one. And as far as dealing with the elderly people are concerned, so that you're not seen as somebody rude, right? There is an incident from the early days of Islam of a young man who saw an elderly, person, Muslim, performing ablution not rightly. He's performing ablution, but it's not right. So what he did was, he approaches him and he says, "Sir, I'm going to perform ablution. Can you see for me if I'm doing it rightly?" So the person who is doing it wrongly, then he does it perfectly. And when he finishes and he leaves, the elderly person learns, "Oh, okay, I skipped this. I was supposed to do this." So that is a fine example. Sometimes as a leader, especially if you're a young person and then you find yourself in a position of leadership, you must so much work with wisdom, right? Otherwise, when you do not work with wisdom and you end up being rude to the elders, they may be wrong sometimes, but when you end up being rude to them, the result is that they withdraw their support from you. Okay, and definitely, no matter the situation, the elders hold some knowledge, they hold some wisdom that you would always learn from. So when they withdraw that support from you, you suffer. Once a companion of the Prophet ﷺ, who was involved in smoking, he was a very, very elderly person during the time of the Hazrat Muslim Maud radiallahu anhu. His son, the son of the companion, approaches Hazrat Muslim Maud to complain about that companion. Now, as the caliph, as the khalifa, one would have thought that he summoned the elderly companion and then sanction him, give him some punishment or something, because he is khalifa. But as a Muslim Maud didn't do that. As a Muslim Maud radiallahu anhu ignored him, okay, as if the companion had done nothing wrong. Now that was to give some respect to somebody who has been a companion of the Prophet ﷺ, okay, and behind him, find a way of approaching that companion respectfully. So that is an incident for us to learn from. You do not even admit, he didn't even admit that this elderly companion had done something wrong, but he took steps to approach him respectfully so that he reforms from that act he's doing. So wisdom has to be employed in dealing with the elders. You should not, under any circumstance, approach them, because there must be a reason why the Prophet ﷺ says we should respect them, we should honor them. Okay, because they've gone through a lot, and at that age they need a lot of companionship, they need to be listened to, they need to be respected, and so on. And when you do that, there are benefits that you reap, especially youth in leadership.
I see. Okay, I'll come back to you. I think just as a young person is offended when you are treated rudely or badly, I think that it would be even worse for the older person when he is treated badly by a younger person. So we should always keep that in check, please. Your other question.
Okay, so I want to know, any of them can take it up. Yeah, so what are some of the things that we can do as youth to demonstrate or exhibit our readiness to the elderly who thinks, or probably for one or two reasons think that we are not ready.
All right. Naib Sadr, I think I'll start with you on this.
Thank you. I think as youth, we need to, first of all, be morally upright.
Okay.
And then we must take responsibilities. We need to live a responsible life. We need to let the elderly have trust in us that when they leave this in our care, we can handle it without a problem. Mostly, we tend to take the backstage when we see the elderly. We tend to take the backstage. Sometimes these elderly also want us to
show
some readiness. Mm-hmm. But then we decide that, the others are there, so then we get reserved. No. We should always try as much as possible to come up, take the bold step, and make sure that whatever opportunity or chance that is given to us, we utilize it and we execute it as they expect of us. Because when they say there's never a second chance to create first impression. When you are given the first chance and you waste it, obviously you know you will not get the second chance again. Or if even it will come, it will be very difficult for you to get it.
I see. Okay, thank you very much. Yes, please, go ahead.
For me, I think one of the first things that we must do is consultation. We should never miss out on an opportunity to consult the older generation. That's the starting point. And, they say that advice saves you time. The amount of time you spend on making mistakes will be saved by one advice. And I'll share an example with you. In my workplace, we're doing a case, and then we're supposed to file our written submission. So our arguments that we're going to make in court, we need to write them. So my boss asked me to do it. It was in respect of a particular matter. Then I was sitting down trying to figure it out. Then I wrote about a 7-page document. Then I sent it to him. He didn't say anything, and he just brought out the rules book, opened one page, and underlined one sentence. He said, "This is your answer." 7 pages against one sentence. I was ready because I spent about 2 weeks. He kept asking me, "When is it coming?" I said, I'm working on it. He said, "You answered it, but that is not the answer. Like what you said is not wrong, but that is not the answer." And I've never forgotten that thing. So all the time I spent, now, if I'm ever given the opportunity to answer that question, I won't waste the same time.
Yeah.
You get it? So I'm able to teach
save
people.
you 2 weeks.
Yes. I'm able to tell people when it comes up in a conversation, I just mention it. Like, we've never paid attention to it. Now I'm privileged because I got an older person to show me. So I think we need to understand. I think there's a danger here, youthful exuberance. When you are young and you are full of energy, you begin to think that their ways are archaic. But they say that what an older person will see sitting, a younger person will not see when standing.
Even on a story building.
Yes. So, and I think Mubisa was talking about whether even those who do wrong, they must have learned from their lessons.
Yeah.
So there's a wealth of experience that we can tap from. So that is the starting point, consultation. The second one is showing up for the little things you are responsible for. And my father always says this, and I'm going to say it in Fanti. So worry, nasa on one shema, odu into me. To wait, if something is being done and you don't involve yourself, when it is your turn to do it, you cannot do it. So that is the starting point. In order to show that you are ready to do something, you must show that you have done something. Your track record might not be as great, because right now, if you have to bring your CV, your experience cannot go beyond your education. But when they bring their CV, they've handled projects. You have not. So if you have been able to do little things, then you get the opportunity to even sit with them and then work with them. So as young people, we should not miss out on such opportunities. And to add briefly to what Mobisa answered, the very first question you asked, how we should deal with the older people so we don't come across as disrespectful and rude. There's a principle called candid candor. It's usually in management, if you're a leader, how you reprimand people. You need to ask yourself, what is the motive for reprimanding? Are you trying to disgrace the person or are you trying to solve a problem? So if there's an opportunity to do it backdoor, choose it. There's really no pleasure in embarrassing the person, and especially when it is an older person. You can never erase that. Mm-hmm. So I think with these things, we are somehow ready to have a discussion with them and tell them that we are ready.
Oh. Yes.
I may. I just want to add that all these things you've talked about, the two colleague panelists have talked about, can be summed up, as far as Islam is concerned, in 2 or 3 principles. As far as leadership is concerned, Islam says that you should at all time work with justice. Justice is key. So as youth, we should begin to exhibit this in our dealings. In your small way, you should be seen to be dealing with justice. That is one. Number 2 is selflessness. Okay, a leader must be selfless, you know. And when you adopt this, and also sincerity and truth. So these 3 principles, when you begin to exhibit them in your own small way, even the elders who have excuses that the youth don't seem ready for leadership now, even they begin to get attracted to you, and they begin to pave your way, you know. So that is the reason why justice, selflessness, and sincerity and truth is so much emphasized in the Holy Quran.
I see. Wow, justice, selflessness, sincerity, and truth. These are gems that I think we all need to imbibe in ourselves. Just as we do, let us also turn our eyes onto the social media and see what people have to say about this. We'll be back with you shortly.
Kwame Khalifa commented on Facebook, "Just because there's an old saying doesn't mean it's wise. Just because you are old doesn't mean you are intelligent. Intelligence and old age have nothing to do with each other." Olivia M. Komugisha, small goddess, commented, "Young people are being subjected instead of being engaged, and what happens is that the youth will react. They will react to the government. If the youth are the biggest population and you are reckoning them out of the door, it means that the solutions being created do not speak to them." Olivia M. Komugisha, small goddess, further commented, "Young people are committed and engaged in different things, art, music, etc. They are a movement. When they don't want something, they will come together as a youth to oppose that which they don't believe in. Hashtag know your limit. Hashtag constitutionalism in Africa." Olivia N. Komugisha, small goddess, further commented, "If we say that young people are not participating in the politics of their countries, we should ask whether we have made the environment favorable for the youth to engage. We need to make laws that include the youth for them to feel part of everything. Hashtag know your limits." Opoku Inketia commented on X, "Good leadership. It takes a good leader to rise up to transform the outlooks of the youth. For a society can flourish better with much improvement when the youth are taken care of, when jobs are there to work, and there are no cheating bosses who only use them as unwanted."
Yes, welcome back, audience. So that was what the social media world also had to tell us about this same topic that we're discussing. Now, there's something else here. You see, in Africa, especially now, a lot of people are kind of fed up with how our political system is across a lot of countries. It's not an issue that is peculiar to just one country. So please, share with me some things that you think the youth should do differently That's what I think. Any of you can pick this, and we can swap it amongst ourselves too. What should the youth do differently in our political arena to effect the change that we want to see, or to come up with better results than what the elders have now left for us? I think you should start.
Right. So, well, if you listen to a lot of young people who are fed up, as you said, many of the things they complain about are national in nature. They are complaining about the economy. They are complaining about the education sector. They are complaining about the health sector. They are complaining about employment, energy. They are complaining about bad roads. And all of these things, I mean, they are the responsibility of the government. Now, I think one of the biggest challenges we face now is how partisan our political space has become. First of all, I am in no position opposed to partisan politics. I'm a strong proponent for partisan politics. But I think for young people, because now what is happening is that the moment you start a conversation, the moment you share your view, then they begin to ask, are you NPP, are you NDC? That is in the Ghanaian political space. Where do you belong? So if you are an NDC person, you don't have the right to complain about how bad things are, because in your time it was worse. If you are an NPP person, you are either benefiting from what is happening, that is why you are supporting the government, or you are too stupid, and excuse my language, you are too stupid to see that things are not working, but you are blinded by partisan politics. But what I think the young people can do is to go back in time. We should go to the nationalism era, the era when we were fighting for political independence, where the interest was national. We were fighting for Ghana. The era of Kesley Hayford, Pa Grant, J.B. Dankwa, Kwame Nkrumah, when the conversation was about Ghana, trying to do something that will help the people in Ghana and to be free from our colonial masters. I think we should go back to that era, because clearly, whatever system we seem to have now is not working for us. You can speak from your perspective, because they have different economic orientations. Some are capitalist, some are socialist, but at the end of the day, Ghana as a country must work. We cannot, throughout our efforts, do anything and Ghana will not work.
I see. Okay.
I just want to magnify the same point he's making. And you see, the one very common problem with the youth is that to show that we're not nationalist in our thinking, we are more of partisan, political in whatever we do, is to the extent that the youth and everybody else complaining about the situation of things in the country, these same people would allow themselves, during the campaign seasons, the politician approach you with 200 cedis to vote for him. You accept that, knowing very well that if he's sharing 200 cedi each in the locality, he becomes, whatever tomorrow, whether an MP or the president of the country tomorrow. Somebody invested in his campaign, so he has to get it back. So if the youth, the thinking was right, were thinking of the general good of the country, then the youth should stand up. It's about time they stood up and said no to such petty gifts from politicians. We will insist that when you win, okay, you do this for us. You develop the hospitals, you develop the health sector, the education sector, you develop the work, the road network, and so on. And if you do not do that, we punish you by voting you out. It is the only way that the politicians, their way of thinking will be set right. Otherwise, they come to us and entice us, and we create the environment for them to
bring those
to do that.
Okay.
They bring you rice and oil, and you eat within a week or two. It's done, and you have the rest of the year to suffer. You have 4 years to suffer for just a bag of rice. So that mentality also has to be worked on, especially among the youth. If the youth stand up and say we will not be enticed anymore, we will not be used anymore, then politicians...
It will cause a change.
It will cause a change.
Yeah. I see. Naib Sadarsa, let me bring in this. When you go to some countries in the West, politics or say political campaigns are funded by the individuals. sometimes even those people who are going to vote in that area, they are the ones who would sponsor someone to go for the political office. Here, based on what my brother is saying, is the other way around, that they would rather give us something when they come to us. Do you think our structure, this structure where they would need to amass a lot of money for political campaigns, because campaigning is not cheap, does it play a role in, going to, in helping, or say in getting them corrupt when they become political officers?
Of course it does. Because in our setting, the political campaign and strategies is in a way to describe as people do investment. It's more or less like an investment.
Yeah.
Because initially they put in huge sums of money. They put in huge sums of money. Campaigns and monies for delegates, meetings,
And chiefs.
Yes. You see, so why wouldn't they be corrupt? Why wouldn't they amass wealth? They already have a debt to settle. They already have a debt to settle. So until we are able to put an end to that way of politics, where they lose huge sums of money before they assume political power, we will still be complaining about transparency and corruption and all that. And mind you, if it goes this way, then how will somebody like me venture into politics? How much do I have to invest and recruit later?
Or say the average Ghanaian. Because you know that even with the ideas, you would not have the needed funds to help you sell your message to the people. We would want to go on so much. There are so many things I would have wanted us to talk about, but time is not on our side. So I would quickly go to Lawyer Sab, and you would give us your last words, but in it should be like in a minute. In it, you should tell us some of the traits of some people in history, what they did to effect positive change, or say what made their leadership nice. So, please.
Okay, so I would, first of all, once again go back to Martin Luther King.
Okay.
I would maybe Kwame Nkrumah. These are the people. And, throughout, if you look at Kwame Nkrumah, for example, he was a man of the people. He spoke the truth of the people. He was able to appeal to their conscience. So his campaign was sponsored by market women. They actually funded everything because he went to school, learned something, and he was brought down to come. So he was devoted to the political life. He spent his whole time here doing politics. So I think for him, it was the message he brought. And for Martin Luther King, he was doing the same because he was also speaking in the church. He was a reverend. And he spoke the truth of the people. So I think at the end of the day, the leaders who have made that positive impact were those who appealed to the conscience of the people. They need to understand why that decision is important and how useful it will be to them. Because rarely do you hear these things. It looks like they tell us things that they think we want to hear, or things that they would say to give us some comfort. Once they get the vote, they are out.
It's not easy. Naib Sadosa, please, your last words in a minute.
My last word to fellow youth is that we must rise up to the task. We should know that we are the future of politics in this country. And the future is now. It is time to harness every opportunity that we have, and then make sure that we exhibit good morals in order to bring the change that we want to see. The youth is a significant part of the population.
Yes.
And for that matter, we need to be there and let our voice be heard.
All right. The youth is a significant part of the population, and we need to be there for our voices to be heard. Wow. That's great. Bobby, sir, please, your last words.
I'll just say that there have been some very young people who changed the way things happened in this world before. It's not new that the youth, it has been proven beyond doubt that the youth can influence change. They can make the world a better place. And when I say this, I think about people like Alexander the Great, not religious, but focused, and within 10 years what he did was so much. He conquered, the largest empire of the ancient times. Even when we come closer, during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, somebody as young as 17 or 18 years old was appointed as a leader, as Osama bin Zaid. Even when we come further, people like Harun al-Rashid, a caliph of the Abbasid dynasty, was just about 23 years when he became caliph. And his time is remembered as the golden age of Islam. We can even come closer. Within the Jamaat, 25 years old, Hazrat Muslim Maud became Khalifa of this worldwide community. And within his time, imagine the sort of development, despite the challenges that his Khilafat faced. So it has been tested time and again that the youth can make a difference. It is just that we need to look at the lives of these individuals. What did they do differently? What are the values that they held? Were they such that their elders could use them for menial, useless, things, hooliganism and other things? Were they corrupt people? Were they people who didn't learn? So we look into the lives of these people, and we should look into the lives of these people and let their principles, the values that they had, guide us. And we will also be able to make an impact going forward as youth, inshallah.
All right, we need to look at how they led their lives for it to impact us. I have taken a number of things. What I took from this is that there are some key things that we need to imbibe in ourselves if we want to be different. We should practice justice, selflessness, then truth or sincerity in our activities. Once the leader of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community here in Ghana, Amir Nur Muhammad bin Saleh Sahib, he told me something. He said, I was asking him about mentorship for leaders, the missionaries and all that. He said, no, you shouldn't look for any mentor. Go there, lead, be brave, make mistakes, but learn. Because when you start to learn, then you start to grow. So I think if we do not like what we're seeing, we should do better. I believe that the saying of the Holy Prophet Muhammad ﷺ says that if the leaders are not good, pray so much, change yourself. God would maybe change the leader, their attitude, or change the person who is sitting there as a leader. I think this would be the point where we break the curtains down on this program. Thank you very much for staying with us. I'm very grateful to our beautiful studio audience, and also to our honorable esteemed guests who took us through the discussions. Thank you very much, and we hope to see you again, inshallah, in the near future. Viewers, as I said, this is where we would end the program. Until we meet again here on MTA International Africa for Real Talk Africa, may the peace and blessings of God be upon us all. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuhu.
Allah